Итак, коллеги,
So, dear colleagues, once again, good afternoon. Let's proceed with this session as our Internet overseas speakers are gathering in the room. It'll take them a bit more time. We have only two persons missing, but we got to start because we're pressed for time, so we have to stick to the agenda. So today's topic of the discussion is international cooperation, new opportunities for the development of small business in Russia and Islamic world countries. In our view, this is a pressing issue. It's a popular issue, a trendy issue in Oriental countries, Eastern countries. It's not. There's nothing new. As we say in Russia, everything new is the well-forgotten past. So when this whole thing started with small businesses in Russia, with the division of the separation of business operations, this is when cooperations took root. So as of today, cooperation works as follows. For the most part, in big businesses and large businesses in the industry, whereby countries find cooperation ties, cooperation chains, and they grow and develop and evolve, which takes place successfully. As a small business, I'm a representative of the Tatarstan branch of Opora of Russia, which is an old Russian NGO for small, mid-sized businesses. So we ran a survey, and the question was, how is small business interested in such cooperation and in such networking? So in the course of the year, we gathered information from more than 20 different industries, i.e. catering, production, transportation, shipping, purchasing, services, trade. And so we ran the survey for these industries. So 90% of SMEs said they were ready to cooperate in between themselves, which was because every business strives to maximize its capacity. So if you have a shopping floor, trading floor, you have to keep it busy. Same refers to production. So you have to maximize your output. Everyone's ready to do 100% of what depends on them, and everyone's interested in focusing on their own business in transportation, logistics, let's say from trade and raw materials, are interested in working 100% capacity. So it's an interesting mechanism, and not just in Russia, but it works likewise overseas. Internationally, we spoke with SMEs of other countries, and they also said they are willing to cooperate with Russian SMEs in this using this mechanism of cooperation, which reduces additional cost, additional expenditure, reduces cost, product cost, services cost, and there is this role of legal legitimate reduction of tax mitigation. And today I'd like to hear expert views with those experienced in this work, in this cooperation, and I'd like to get feedback and to understand whether they see trends, whether they see opportunities, and how this is pressing, how this is a pressing issue. And I'd like them to share opinions, share their experience as to how it works in other countries. And we have here a number of Russian speakers and international speakers that are dealing with entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship, and I'm sure they'll be able to give them their expert views. Can you show me the first slide, please? If you have feedback and if you want to go deeper into this topic as an expert or a consultant, or if you want to take part in this work that we will be launching with entrepreneurs in any way, and we cannot stop this process. It's an ongoing trend. You can use this QR code here, and you can leave your feedback or your contacts, or maybe you can upload your presentation. We will also be uploading materials as well as photos from today's session. And I'd like to, once we're done with the session today, I'd like to continue this work and in such a way that it works not only in Russia, but if obviously our today's speakers will assist us, I'd like it to extrapolate it to other countries. So following the agenda, I'd like to give the floor now to our partner and speaker and expert from Indonesia, Lubarta Satoyo Sanvia, who last year, with whose help, who last year explored how this works in Indonesia, especially algorithms for entering Indonesian markets, SMEs, and he shared his expertise, his knowledge with an interesting case. And this year we invited you for the second time. It's kind of a little tradition we have here, and we wanted you to share your cooperation experience. And you said you have a very interesting experience, and thank you very much. So good afternoon, dear guests. First and foremost, I'd like to give my thanks to you for inviting me over, and this is indeed becoming a good tradition to meet at this very important forum, the Islamic World, Russia Islamic World Forum. As you know, Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world, and this is also the reason why we have good crossing points, connection points with Russia due to this factor. A few words about myself. I represent MIR, Maju Indonesia Rusia, which translates as Russia and Indonesia forward, or let's move forward. It fosters understanding between our countries. Our company has been employs a lot of Indonesians who speak fluent Russian. They have studied in Russia, in the Russian Federation. They got educated in various areas in the Russian Federation, and they apply their knowledge and skills in addition to understanding the mentality of the multinational, multi-ethnical country being the Russian Federation. The so-called commercial diplomacy, as you know, is one of the most important aspects that foster relations between country, and not only in business, but also in sciences, culture, etc. So the first thing we need to point out and to accentuate, and this is what we do, but we need to continue, is knowledge, a better knowledge of each other, as well as expansion or enhancement of such knowledge by various information channels. Also, we should mention that there are nuances, of course, and specificity with regard to whatever each of our countries has. It's important that you need to know who you're dealing with, and that you develop an immediate face-to-face contact, contacts. So under the auspices of our company and our association, the chairman of the Exporters and Importers Association, we organize various business missions in both directions, to Russia. So Indonesian groups come to Russia, and vice versa. Russian businesses, Russian companies visit Indonesia. As an example, this March, I got back from Indonesia, and where we conducted a business mission in Jakarta and Bali under the auspices of the exhibition of the expo. It was an interesting expo, food and beverage expo. Also, hospitality was another aspect of the expo. It was a very efficient one, and here's why. We know, and our colleagues from the Russian Export Center, the Moscow Export Center, and other centers for promoting exports, the regional centers, they do similar things, similar initiatives. We also do that, but we do so first and foremost based on our own specificities, our associations. It is a tradition for us that business is a business is a member of a certain association. SMEs do not normally have the right to export a certain product. on its own, then that business, a small mid-sized business, enters that organization, joins the organization, and that structure sets up the process on behalf of that business, and they interact with the relevant Russian counterparty directly. The efficiency of such business missions is largely much higher than just remote communication that Indonesian partners would not understand. In our mentality, there's a notion called something like family, entering a family or becoming a member of a family. We start a business counting on long-term relations, not just buy-sell initiatives, but they aim they strive to make long-term profits, long-term gains. It's a long-term type of relationship. So what should I say? What should one say about the specific features of these organizations, these associations? There's this Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which we have to deal with. You must deal with. You must cooperate. And I'm not just talking about the Russian business, but I mean that it's not enough, because we also have a so-called local or regional. There are regional or local chambers of commerce and industry. So Indonesia is a large country. It's around we're talking about 300 million people, 17,000 islands and isles, and 4 provinces. And they're quite diverse, with various diverse cultures, languages, and religions, beliefs, faiths. And going down from the federal structure, we end up with the local chambers of commerce. And in light of this, we have a proposal. What we are developing now. Last time I met with the administration of Eastern Sagara, which is a region with a fast-developing region, an Islamic region with powerful. Lombok is the island where the economy is fast-growing, and they have some interesting potential investment projects. So we exchange on a region-to-region level. We build these relations, and since at that regional level there are chambers of commerce, associations, and unions, so we contact at that level. We believe this will yield efficiency, and not just declaration of mutual work, cooperation, but actual work, the actual efficient work. This is how we've been doing this in the past. Back in December of 2023, we signed an agreement with a number of such regions on the Association of Exporters and Importers that do a lot of work in this direction, and they have a lot of support. And thank you very much to your organization that for your assistance in this work. Jen, in a nutshell, this is what I wanted to share with you. If you have questions, I'm more than open to address these issues. We should be thinking about long-term work. I think this should be the attitude, a respectful relation to each party, each counterparty, taking into account mental and cultural features, and this is how we achieve success. Thank you very much, Lubarta. This is a very interesting opinion from the standpoint of Indonesian entrepreneurs. And yesterday, with yet another delegation, we met and we talked about the necessity for interregional cooperation between businesses because they're closer down to earth, because they understand what their consumers want, what their businesses want, or what their communities want. This is where we have more specific results, outcomes, imports and exports. And has been more or less going good in many ways. But when it comes to SMEs, we want long-term cooperation, not just one-off deals, but we want 10 to 20-year forecasts for such cooperation with understandable investment horizons, when it comes to a particular region, particular organization, so that they can trust each other and so they can follow the roadmap, not just one-off transactions. Exactly. So we're talking about regional level cooperation because regions vary substantially. When it comes to Indonesia, Indonesia is actually kind of a we vary a lot. So it's more of a we have specificities in each and every small region, all the way from geography, culture, language, etc. Without this, without taking this into consideration, there will be no efficiency, no outcome. So these regional relations, let's say the Republic of Tatarstan, or Eastern Muslim Negara. So in this format of relations in between businesses and chambers of commerce. So this is where we should foster relations. This is when we're going to win. This is how we're going to win. This is why we need visits. We need mutual visits. Of course, we need information. We need to spread information because you need to popularize such international, interregional relations among businesses. This is how businesses will know more and better. So in furtherance of this, I would like to give the floor to, in my opinion, to one of the experts who's prominent in Russia, and he's a well-traveled person, and I'm talking about Vice President for International Relations of our organization, Mr. Dunayev. Nikolai Dunayev. We asked him to partake in the session, so he shares his view on how such cooperation works in such Southeast Asian regions. Let's say Turkey, or maybe some other examples that you can cite. So the floor is yours. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear guests. Anton, thank you very much for inviting me over. I will split your questions into two. First, cooperation, SME cooperation experience in Southeast Asian countries, and second, do Russian companies have a way forward? Let's say, number one, in the East, in the Southeast Asian countries, people and companies respect power, respect authority, and so when it comes to SME growth and their cooperation with large companies is not a thing, is not a thing you find often. This is more common to larger companies. They do not change. They have not changed their title since the Ottomans. Until the 2024, it was the Ottomans. It belonged to the Ottomans. So the land laws have been fixed for a long time. So when it comes to agriculture, this cooperation persists. It still persists both as cooperation or consumer cooperation between SMEs. In tourism, there's also cooperation in terms of services. The most complex issue is industrial cooperation. And when it comes to Turkey, when the population began to grow, since the 1990s, Turkey added 30 million people. So half of that population got distributed in the Marble Sea area and Eastern Trachea area. So for the first time, we saw the example of growing SMEs. The state had a very complex, challenging task to ensure employment because they lacked funding. Of course, people had to survive, and with that population growth, the state had to provide jobs, etc. So for the first time then, using clusters and industrial zones and special tools that made large companies with the privileges to build large industrial complexes. So they grew the culture of growing cooperation among SMEs, industrial SMEs. Now it turned into, it began to bear fruit. So obviously we have other and new SMEs that give jobs, that provide jobs to large and contribute to large textile companies or car companies or oil and petrochemical companies. Iran took another route after the Islamic Revolution. As you know, all the major industrial companies got nationalized. So this is not the process we see in this country. In Egypt, they also failed to create this good example of industrial cooperation. Capital and industry belongs to large companies or persons that are affiliated with the authorities. This roots back to the local monarchies. And so selection is not very representative when it comes to industrial cooperation. So, of course, we have to learn from several industrial zones around Istanbul that take up 40 to 45% of the Turkish economy. You can take a visit, pay a visit to visit there, and learn from there. But we tried to copy-paste that experience in Russia, but until 2022, it did not work. It hadn't worked, and it couldn't because of the Constitution and the existing relations that were in place since 1991. We had been focused on individualism, on the strictly capitalist, let's say raw capitalist society, where libertarian rules prevails. Indonesia has this cooperation practice, which is more or less quote-unquote Soviet system. It's a reasonable approach because when it comes to exports or international trade, going back to the second question, competency plays an important role. Seemingly, it's easy. So you sign a contract, you get your foreign currency, find a customer, solve a question. Yeah, but go find an agreement with a Persian person from Iran. If you face into issues, it's not easy. It's not easy to make a deal with, let's say, Northern Caucasus business people, as they say in Russia. So number one, in agricultural cooperation and services, it does work. We do have good examples, and they work in Russia, in agriculture, as well as in services industry. In the industry, there are few examples, but like I said, we have those in Russia since 2022. We have had to make legislative changes and to the provisions on the industry and trade, and to reformat the entire support to the industry, because we focus on control, on trust. End of the day, large companies win, and of course SMEs are outside the scope. And Opoda of Russia has been trying to overcome this trend, but we have failed so far. Maybe thanks to this Islamic forum, we will bring forth this position to the new minister. When it comes to fostering relations, I was not a supporter until 2022. I was not a supporter of fostering such cooperatives, such corporations, and I'm not a proponent of that to date, because considering our climatic issues in Russia, maybe we should try individual, let's say, promotion of SMEs. We at Opoda of Russia do a lot. It doesn't pay back often, and still we have people. In business, it's not always only important to make money, but to retain it and to avoid, let's say, money-losing businesses is very important. Take any ministry. In this case, we're better than any other ministry. To make money is more difficult. To ensure cooperation to businesses is difficult. You get nothing from nothing. So we don't have that many companies in this industry. My fellow colleagues say 22,000 SMEs remains the same. There are over 50,000 industrial SMEs in Turkey, as an example. So you have to start somewhere. So the substrate, so to speak, is insufficient so that you get a contour. Maybe thanks to the ideas that we hear at this forum, including those from our partners in Indonesia, maybe we will be forced to go ahead and forge these regional cooperations, maybe industry-wide cooperations, or maybe for some industries. For example, we have Rosaboronexport, meaning the defense industry. It's important that private initiative of the Russian SMEs grows and stays in place. We have to find a model which would fit this issue or this challenge. We have enough experience. We're more than happy to give you our support. Thank you very much.
Yes, indeed, in Turkey, and as a tourist, I've been to Turkey only as a tourist. Quite often I visited various chains in different cities in Turkey where the co-op networks are operating. Usually it is food processing, and small and medium enterprises, small and medium businesses go from preparation and processing, and also the hotels and restaurants are included in the chain. There we were able to see that chain. In Russia, well, I can see retails, but retails are a different business. It is not working very comfortably for the small businesses. This approach in Indonesia is very interesting for analysis, and it is interesting to discuss it with business, whether or not our business will be prepared to talk about the business. Well, you don't have to ask the business. They all think they can do that, and then they lose their money. No, thanks to the forum, we will be able to talk to people from Indonesia and other countries, and we will need to learn how it works. In Indonesia, there are 330 million people, and it is quite difficult to learn the way they were able to do that. We need to learn the experience of Indonesia before asking the business. Democracy is not always an optimal way of acting. Well, yes, we will need to see the formula and to decide on where it is adaptive or not adaptive to adaptable to our market. Agreed. So our next speaker, I would like to give the floor to Vicente Barreontes, who would share his opinion on this question and his experience, how international cooperation of small businesses is possible, and what empiric examples there are. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your kind invitation to participate in this forum and for the time given to me. I would also like to bring to your attention the speeches from our colleagues from Indonesia and Mr. Donaev, and how cooperation is possible in the spheres of small and medium businesses. However, I have taken participation in similar events several times with similar agenda, including small and medium business forum of BRICS that took place in Ufa. I do not know whether or not it will be resumed this year or next year, even though it would be a good thing. And I would like to give you my opinion from a totally different approach. Of course, I agree that it would be a good thing to find the single available algorithm or formula that would be able to facilitate things for us, the process of establishing business contacts between countries. So again, here I would like to start with the first thing that we have to overcome, and that is the language barrier. Second of all, we would have to think about a system of standardization on various event and information exchange with a unified quality format, because the differences in the culture, in mentality, in languages, and in the delivery of information and materials could contribute to misunderstanding. Even though I have lived in Russia for more than 35 years, sometimes I think when people write to me several texts, I start thinking one single comma or one single full stop gets transformed as if people wanted to say something different. So I'm asking my assistants whether or not I'm understanding this correctly. So during our business contacts, instead of pretending to be a giant, paraphrasing the words of a classic, we should speak in plain words that would be understandable to everyone. Tell me about your business as if you were talking to a 5-year-old, and then I will understand it perfectly. This is what we're speaking about. My other idea, my other observation, to be more precise, and my other suggestion that I did in UFA is that we need to create maybe a BRICS association for small and medium businesses involving our foreign participants. And we maybe will be able to give a new start to promoting the interests of small and medium businesses of Russia in those countries. Moreover, we will be able to make it with the involvement of Mr. Dunaev and Opora of Russia, not only in MSBs, but also in other enterprises. Yesterday you were a small business, today you're medium, and the day after tomorrow you're a large business. This could be valid not only for SMEs, but also for Russian corporations representing the interests of that business. We could also think about the system of legal consulting in this direction, of accounting support, or what we call the compliance support. In the organization of tenders, receiving grants for implementation of projects and startups, and we would be able to attract the attention of the Bank of BRICS, because I believe that Russia in this context is the most optimal country to focus the intellectual and organizational procedures so that the implementation of these principles could be handed over to colleagues from other countries. Of course, we cannot carry our own rules to another person's house, but at least we would be able to facilitate the communication. Then again, we would be able to think about organizing trainings between our countries and how should I put that, to prepare and complete the 101 for SMEs in our countries. There is a lot of dissonance and disagreement in the understanding of some information. Or if I quote a different classic, President Valensa called, vice versa, President Yeltsin called President Valensa and said, "You have a different standpoint." And President Valensa said, "My standpoint depends on my sitting point." So that's really cool. If you have any questions. And one final note. To conclude my brief speech is that when we speak about international cooperation on SMEs, we should look not only at the Council of Tourism or Gastronomy or Fast Food, councils in medicine, councils in sports, in culture, in arts, and in education. Those would be the things, those would be the focal points in that vast field of cooperation. For many people, Brazil and other countries of Latin America are a terra incognita, and the new recognition of those territories would be an opportunity to open a window not to Europe, but to Brazil and Latin America. So, as our friends Georgians say, God give us health and we'll do the rest. That is a brilliant proposition of today's panel, and indeed, to accumulate the experience and competences, specifics of culture, specifics of business communication, specifics of legal and accounting nuances is a is a thing that will unlock the potential of foreign countries for small and medium enterprises if we ever create such associations of SMEs under BRICS. It could be an excellent tool for entrepreneurs of all countries to understand what's going on in different countries. For foreigners, Russia is a vast country. If we take the North, the Caucasus, and the Far East, people will see that we operate in a different way. We have different time zones, and we have different ways of doing business, and everyone has their own means and fields. Each of those territories is a new world with its specifics. And if we were to create a set of guidelines and rules for us to be able to talk with these markets and territories, it would be a giant leap for the development of small and medium enterprises. Oh, if you allow me, one more thing. To the best of my knowledge, here in Russia, we have the so-called territories of advanced social and economic development. And, well, we should not better refer to them as offshore territories, but free economic zones and special economic zones are a thing in Russia. They can show taxation preferences and other benefits. I believe that these territories could be either enlarged or distributed in such a way so that the SMEs could be working in port cities. Because as soon as you have a port, you have facilitated the conditions for import and export operations. I would fully agree with you. The existing methods, the existing venues should be transferred, should be translated into a more contemporary format. Not only the entrepreneurs should be able to communicate and use that infrastructure, they should have a clear understanding of how to propose these things to their partners. So I thank you for your excellent report. I would thank you for this thing, and we hope it will be discussed in the Business Council of BRICS. So yes, we are interested in this work to be performed. Well, let's consider the things settled. Let's shake hands. I would give the floor to our next speaker. Gastronomy is a huge portion of small and medium enterprises in which SMEs are taking ahead of such fields as education, sports, culture, healthcare. Take any of those activities. In each of them, we have small and medium enterprises. And sometimes the small business prevails rather than the state. So one of the topics that we would think it possible to discuss here with Igor Bukharov, the president of the Association of Restaurateurs and Hoteliers. What are the examples of cooperation? What are some of the cases of cooperation? Well, you see, each of us has referred to the sphere of businesses, to fast food, to street food, to, well, you cannot even imagine how many people are engaged in street food in Indonesia, and every person there is a self-employed business person. They do not have large seating halls for many diners. And what we see here in this country is that only a few people are engaged in these kinds of activities. We were quite active in employing people from ex-USSR territories because there are some problems in unemployment there. And even despite some of Russian territories putting a ban on engagement of migrants in some specific spheres of business, including delivery and courier services and fast food services, despite all that, if we were to move on to our business, as the saying goes, you love and you cease to love, but you want to eat every single day. Until very recently, quite we were cooperating quite. We would cooperate with lots of companies that would bring foodstuffs from Europe. After the conflicts of the year 2008, 2014, we called our own farmers with the requests of supplying foodstuff to us. But then we come across the problem of individualism. A farmer wants to sell 1 billion rubles worth volume of products and to go to the top shelf in the supermarket. Let's say the country had a deficit in potatoes and everybody starts planting potatoes the next year. But next year the situation becomes quite different. And there are no longer restaurants that only need those, let's say, exemplary potatoes. This is how the things work. If we take Turkey and its all-inclusive business, when we were studying that, they said that large hotel networks simply owned some lands and they owned those plantations, the facilities where they gathered fruit and veg, and as a service in the hotel, that would be an inherent thing. And that was very important for people in FSU. They are traveling to Turkey, they have sun, they have the sea, and they have lots of excellent food and drink. Let's try and relocate that to Russian market. Istanbul does not have all-inclusive stories. You go out from the hotel in Istanbul, you turn left and you have 100 restaurants, you turn right and there are hundreds of restaurants. We try to transplant that reality to Russia, and that doesn't work at all times. We talked to marketplaces and we suggested, okay, let's make an aggregator that would enable a space for our farmers. And I, as a restaurator, will not work with a large company. I will work with smaller businesses. And I would love to have a possibility of choosing. When you have a trading and logistic companies, they add their own dominating position on the market. And restaurants today, they have to differ between themselves. This is not a Soviet system when you taste a, let's say, beef stroganoff in Kaliningrad or in Kamchatka, and it would be the same across the country. Today, we have to have diversity. We have to have competition. And when we talk about this with colleagues, we really want to have such a marketplace in which you, well, let's say you buy mango and you say, I'm not going to do desserts using that mango. I'm just buying super high quality mango and simply serve this as a dessert by itself. And this is not possible. And we sometimes are not able to make 100% high quality products by ourselves. A 3-star Michelin French restaurant is buying ice cream only from a person who makes nothing but ice cream. Or let's make a confectionery. They're making desserts and candies, and they sell it to restaurants. Because a restaurant would find it unprofitable to hire a super high quality, super experienced confectioner. That would be economically inviable. Cooperation is important. Cooperation will be here to stay. But we have to tell that story to people. Because us being individuals, us being dragged by our problems in our production, we don't hear anything around us. We have no time to stand and stare. I used to be able to go to a market, but today's farmer does not go to market. He doesn't have the time to do so. And so in the market you have a reseller, no matter how hard you trust them. But under my legislation, I do not buy meat from the market. just because it's not good for my business. And problems like that, as the saying goes, the devil is in the details. We had a pre-revolutionary experience, and we need to dig it out. We need to apply it to the situations when restaurant business, when, let's say, in Brazil, all the most interesting things, all that contributed to the growth has to be used in our specifics. In that way, we will be able to avoid some mistakes. And let's not forget that we have a mentality of our own. We have our special feature is that we are difficult to agree with sometimes. Like the story about the merchants from Nizhny Novgorod who would be looking up and down and saying and trying to get what are your inner thoughts. So it does not come off at a snap of the fingers. We will need to go through a certain phase or several phases, but we have to use the experience of countries who have already gone through those stages. That's important. Thank you, Igor. I would agree that this stage will not be quick. It does take time. And if you have examples of some cases, empirical cases, you have some practical cases that can be taken and adapted for Russian conditions, then this might speed up the process, minimize the risks and losses of time. Well, the small example of desserts that you gave us is an example of cooperation. When one confectioner manufactures some, let's say, a very special kind of cupcake and supplies it to restaurants, then the restaurant will not have to hire a confectioner of their own, because it would be a very narrow specialist, and you cannot load him with 9 hours of work of those cupcakes. Yes, the economic model will not work. That's quite simple. So cooperation with small business was the point of our discussion. There are people who are able to do things well. Yesterday, for example, we had an entrepreneur here, a businessman, who is perfect at doing the Tatar cuisine. So I'm asking him, why people don't know about you in Kazan? There are some extremely well-known restaurants in Kazan. And he said, I'm not a good seller. I'm not a salesperson. My grandmother did it, my mother did it, and so I collected all the recipes from the villages of Tatarstan. He has hired some women who do those products handmade. And I'm asking him, how are you going to develop? And he says, what I'm doing is quite enough for me. And what if you were to ramp up? And he said, I just love my job. I like to feed people. I don't like to do business out of it. But if he supplied his products to restaurants, and he said, I would be glad to do that. I would improve on my quality. That's another example from restaurant businesses. And sometimes we feel that the business is getting mature. But of course, this is not a quick process, and we should look at the example of countries which are already at that stage. We need new mechanisms. The individualism of small businesses is no longer working. People are getting tired. People want to feel new movement. They want to feel new levels of cooperation. In this connection, I would like to give the floor to somebody who has practiced that approach, who has seen this as a tried and tested process in many countries, in this endless journey. Textile and light industry, we have the president of the Russian Union of Textile and Light Industry Entrepreneurs, Denis Rozporin. And he has a very interesting report on how they did it in the country. So let's move on from here. My presentation will be on in a minute.
So let me start with the presentation, and taking into account what has been already said, I will move on to a more practical practical direction. First, I would like to say that our union, it's an important piece of news information for our colleagues. It's the largest industry-wide association in Russia. I am member of the management board of the Russian Union of Entrepreneurs and Industrialists at the government of the Russian Federation in relation to the textile and light industry. So we have been working for a while and quite intensely, and we have a number of various projects. Please move ahead with this. Another slide, please. Thank you. So let's start with the brief facts and move on to the cooperation aspect. Let me talk about my industry only, consumer goods industry, because I know it the best. I spent more than half my life working in this industry. So what can I say? The first thing you need to understand clearly is that the world is changing fast. The economy is changing. Textiles and consumer goods industry is changing fast, and it may sound surprising, but it is the fact. For the most part, it's due to the global economic crisis that took part years ago, and many economists believe it is still ongoing, according to these economists. So what it leads to is that markets redistribute between Europe, the U.S., or America generally, and production and cooperation shifts towards the part of the world, let's say, where we are now partially located, and we have representatives of such countries sitting in this room. I'm not talking about the African continent as a whole, or certain South American countries with which we actively cooperate. I will first and foremost talk about countries such as the Islamic countries, including Turkey, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Indonesia, that already has been mentioned previously, as well as the United Arab Emirates, with which we're building fostering a number of programs. In the near term, we're talking about Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which we're not dealing with at the moment. Obviously, China or India are serious countries, major countries when it comes to major players when it comes to textiles and consumer goods, and they support this part. And we should clearly take this into consideration, because the cooperation that we can deal with as part of the Russian and Islamic cooperation is, in this situation, will undoubtedly take into account these two countries, i.e. China and India, because this is how the world is changing, and of course the cooperation systems will be developing in this direction, no doubt about that. So when it comes to consumer goods and textiles, let me give you some brief facts. We're used to the fact that, like I always say in the interviews, we're talking about trousers, underwear, apparel, socks, linen, etc. But when it comes to the international distribution of division of work, it's only so it's only an insignificant portion. The rest is high-tech textiles, high-tech industry. It would be sufficient to say that the wing of a Russian jet MS-21 is for the most part fabricated out of special fibers that are interwoven. It's a special type of fabric. It's a woven material, only using high-tech machinery. We're talking about jets, of course. And when it comes to, it's also impregnated with special chemicals. as well. So cooperation among young SMEs may not only exist on the basis of the production of consumer goods, but also, which is a fact of the day, but also it has to do with cooperation with chemical fibers, with the production of recycled products made out of petrochemicals. So all these processes are taking place, and so let me skip a number of slides. So here you see the numbers that represent turnover between Russia and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation countries. Over the last years, we have seen rampant growth, and that has to do with the textiles and consumer goods industry due to a number of reasons. It's clear that it has to do with these major changes, shifts in logistics, i.e. consumption. European consumption is in a slump, is declining, and so there's a major shift now towards China, towards India, and a number of other countries. We're talking about the production-based shift, and it has to do with the migration or the shift of the machinery. So the engineering companies that make textile producing equipment, so many of them have migrated or relocated to China, and somewhat to a certain degree to India. So when it comes to possibilities of our cooperation, they have we see the trend to growth in these areas. So sooner or later, the special military operation will be over, and this the so-called heavy sanctions regime that results in major changes in Europe. Believe me, I'm not trying to propagate certain ideas. I would just returned from certain negotiations, some talks in Europe, and there's a number of processes that are taking place there that the outcome of which we don't quite understand. So anyway, the global world, as we know it, the global economy, the way we're used to, will not most likely exist in the near term. It will change somewhat, as well as the remittances and payment system will look differently in the near term, and we should be also working about in this direction. We're talking about de-dollarization. We're talking about settlements. We're talking about settlements without that major role of the dollar, the U.S. dollar, because it is what hampers the international settlements situation. And therefore, it's an important aspect that is being resolved at the national level. So the logistics system that is under significant change, and to a varying degree, Russia has always been between Europe and Eastern countries and Southeastern Asian countries, which is a historical feature as well as our advantage to some extent. It's our advantage because in our culture we featured both sides, both Eastern and Western, in the Russian culture, and they've been coexisting quite successfully so far. So these changes in the logistics system result in the fact that we should also include Iran to this to the list of countries, because for a period of time Iran has been under sanctions, and we haven't learned enough, I guess, when it comes to their experience with such sanctions. But it turned out that in Iran they enjoy the upside or the advantages of such sanctions. Surprisingly, in the fall, in the coming autumn, we will host a major expo. Our expo program is called A Week Textiles and Consumer Goods Industry Week. It takes place twice a week. It'll take place this year in September of 2024 in Moscow. I hereby invite you to this expo. It'll feature an extensive business program, and we're still working on this program. So it was not easy to defend this expo, in quote unquote, because our European competitors tried hard to protect us, quote unquote, from the Muslim world. I'm talking about the expo operators, mostly Western expo operators in fashion, in textiles, and raw materials for the textile industry, where they showcase mostly European companies, EU companies. And so thanks to this, the market, which is seemingly the closest to us, the Chinese market, had been studied to a very low degree. And now we understand it much better, and we understand that we have ample opportunities for cooperation going forward. So, like I said, we are in the process of de-dollarization of the financial system in Russia. And indeed, as we said, the logistics system changed. Many brands left Russia, have left Russia over the past years. So we have a window of opportunity for the consumer goods industry in Russia. This segment has grown recently, but in order to move forward, this year we proposed to the Russian government, and I hope the new Russian government, the newly formed government, will discuss it together with the Higher School of Economics. We financed this program. We put together a project for the development of our textiles industry until 2035. So this project is available for you to review. It deals with all sorts of issues that I touched upon briefly in my presentation. And it has to do with the cooperation between textile industry and other industries in Russia, as well as Islamic countries, taking into account the experience of these countries, including Turkey. So here,
скажу в практической ситуации. Вот, ну, например, что?
So, for example, we're talking about the textiles and sewing industry. We have 12 companies in Russia. These are joint ventures, Russian-Turkish joint ventures. The owners are, for the most part, Turkish colleagues, but legally these are 100% Russian entities that are fully integrated into the Russian economy and the Russian business. And we, as the union, have been supporting this trend, and we continue to support them. They have been progressing and growing quite successfully, and together with these partners, we also deal and cooperate with Uzbekistan. And what is important for the situation to evolve and grow, I talked about it briefly. I touched upon it. Of course, each and every country has its own culture and features, but of the countries that we had mentioned, the countries that are the proponents of the mutual profit, mutual benefit, this lack of, without the necessary stress. Of course, as business people, you have to negotiate, and sometimes negotiate tough, which is normal. But in addition to this, at the government level, as we move forward in this direction, speaking of a particular industry, the intergovernmental agreements and certain guarantees that exist. So in order to have this capital flow between countries and in order for that to be protected and understandable and transparent, yes, indeed, we have various traditions and approaches they are not necessarily liked by all. But as we say in Islam, as they say in Islam, as well as in any other true culture, genuine culture, we must honor the order and rules. Of course, if you don't have rules, you can interpret it the way you want. So in each and every particular case, we must take into account specificity, but not at the business level, because business can do a lot today, yet not everything. I.e., we're talking about interbanking cooperation or intergovernmental relations. These issues must be attended to. So this is part of our strategy. This is what we are dealing with. This is all mentioned in the 2023 strategy, 2023 strategy. So speaking of which, where can we find this strategy? Is it uploaded? Yeah, it's uploaded now. It's available. We've just approved it with a number of experts. It's either uploaded or will be uploaded on our website very shortly. So it's freely available. So we can get in touch with someone to use it as a resource, as an information resource. You can obviously visit the website and just download it and review it. And we're going to have the presentation, correct? No, we're going to review it again and refresh it. So I have a question. We understand that cooperation, you've already built this cooperation in the textile and consumer goods industry. You've got growth trends. You've got millions of people involved. I think this is just the top of the iceberg. If we continue it with this trend, I think we have to increase it several-fold when it comes to the stakeholders. For us to grow with this rate, it's important to implement, to execute the strategy. Like I said, demand goes down, and despite the fact that I'm talking about the global demand when it comes to this industry, textiles and consumer goods industry, it has to do with, this is because of the overall global crisis. Let's say the consumer demand goes down because people's savings go down. Because economies do not grow, obviously salaries don't grow. Well, I mean, there's not less money on the planet, right? Or the overall global debt, for you to understand, is over 330 trillion US dollars. This is the global debt by country. It's a very high number for you to understand. So it's for the near future as an economist, I should tell you that it's quite a challenge that we should take into account, of which 34 trillion accounts for the United States of America, that the country that owns the major global currency. It's a secret, but don't share it with anyone. It's not that we have less money. The money becomes more expensive. In fact, it's quite a true statement. I should agree with that. So in order to move it ahead and to solve these issues, countries that are moving ahead seriously when it comes to textiles, in this situation of the slump, competition, despite the growth in population growth, strangely does not go down. I.e., competition goes up, competition grows. Surprisingly, or at least it's at the same level. And speaking of, so I have information that's 4-year-old. The production volume in textiles and consumer goods industry was 1.7 times higher than consumption. That's almost a double. It's almost 100%, i.e., twofold. So this is a high, like a short cycle industry. So, for example, China understood this. So thanks to this industry, they were able to move their overall economy ahead very fast and efficiently. So it's a separate discussion, of course. So to drive it in Russia, it's not enough to want it, but we have to get real serious and forge a certain strategy. I'm not saying that our strategy is ideal, is optimal. Of course, we propose it to the government, the Russian government, and we should use the resources we have. Any strategy can be, let's say, criticized or changed, but any strategy must be executed. And so we have to understand and prioritize based on the general items. Would you like to add something? Yes. Differentiation has to do with the economic cooperation. Our growth is more than 3% a year in nearby European countries and other regions. It's less than 1% growth. So, Andre, when you started discussing the overall industry-wide policy worldwide, in Asian countries, African countries, is that the same scenario? Is that an overall global trend, or is it just Eastern countries or Southeast Asian countries and the Russian trend? Speaking formally, from the economic standpoint, in certain countries there is growth. For example, China shows growth, but China, what happens is they have their own crisis, the internal crisis, that domestic crisis that has to do with overproduction in construction. So they have a construction crisis with payment defaults, etc. So because of this, they are growing their national debt. They subsidize this situation substantially, and moreover, despite the fact that seemingly the situation is good now, we have a relatively small national debt, and we got positive growth in terms of GDP growth over the past years. When it comes to the gold and currency result, we reduced it. So due to the fact that, yes, we subsidize certain projects as a country so that they move ahead and advance. But the ratios, economic ratios, are still pretty good and solid. So if we continue doing it the right way going forward, then we're on the right path, I believe. So when it comes to SMEs in our industry, let's say when it comes to sewing, there are mutual investment. There's room for mutual investments because brands many brands have left. There are many new brands popping up, let's say, entering the market. Whatever we need for the Russian market, we can. I mean, we're still behind when it comes to production in Russia, and it's not correct to do so in Russia. There are things that are worthy of production in Russia, but it makes sense to delegate it to our partners. Many things are being produced, manufactured in Armenia, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. Sri Lanka is also a partner. We have two companies, to be more specific, that came to us from Bangladesh. I'm talking about the sewing industry. These are quote-unquote Russian companies with the Bangladesh roots. So we have with certain teams from Indonesia, we're holding talks about this similar issues. So to a varying degree, we will be fostering these initiatives. So for many companies today, of the countries that I mentioned, including, for example, our talks with Iran, they want to create JVs in Russia because from the standpoint of the ever-changing logistics, it's interesting and it's beneficial, it's profitable for them as well. So some things are worth manufacturing there, and some things are worth manufacturing in Russia. It's an interesting expert work and practical work that your union is in the process of doing in a sector. I'm sure there are things to look up and to understand. And thank you for the information. I would also like to learn the opinion of another invited speaker, who's Deputy Minister for International Relations and Development of Ghana.
Как вы видите?
How do you see the development of or maybe you have the examples of development of small and medium businesses between your region and the countries of Russia and Eastern countries. How does it work? What's your opinion about that one?
Opportunity to join this forum and the discussion that is currently going on, and the question that you have asked. Unfortunately, there is not much business interaction and engagement between the captains of industry or investors in Ghana and Russia, the Russian Federation. So it's a bit difficult to actually delve into that particular area. We haven't had that much by way of business relationships.
Может быть, тогда
But maybe I would reform that question. Maybe I would put it in a different way. Why do we have so little interaction? What influences it? What prevents this interaction? Or maybe there are some other factors that we have not addressed. Maybe there is too little information.
I think I'll be tempted to agree with you that there appears to be very minimal interaction by way of the information flow. And as to Ghana and quite a number of African countries, is not an area where I would say the Russian entrepreneurs have actually ventured that much. And especially where they have come in, their concentration has been at the higher level. They want to come in a big way and get a big chunk of the business and the opportunities over there. Whereas the industries in Africa are predominantly SMEs. And you find it very difficult where a Russian investor will come into Ghana and attempt to do a small-scale kind of business. So it's the big corporations. As we speak, we have corporations like Rusal, who wants to come into Ghana to actually come into our bauxite industry. And there you are talking of an investment that runs in billions. Difficult to find a Russian company coming in to invest $5 million business in Ghana. That has been one key thing. And when we think it has come, we've come to the age where we need to actually come to the Russian country and actually speak to the Russian investors and let them know the potential and what is available and what they can, the type of information they know, the questions they ask. And predominantly, I was coming here to try to sell Ghana to the Russian investor, to know that there's a small country in West Africa that is full of gold. The four corners of the whole country is gold. Everywhere you dig, you find gold. Maybe when the Russian investor gets to know that there's a country out there that has gold in abundance throughout, that has so much minerals, that has lithium, that has iron, that is a new kid on the block when it comes to oil, that has magnesium, and there are all these potentials, that has a huge, vast agric land, arable land, that is waiting for the investor to come in. And that also provides the opportunity of a stable, peaceful country that guarantees the development of your business, the transfer of your profits, and that has a youthful, trainable youth that can offer all that you need to be able to come and invest in that country. That is the kind of message I would want to come and give to the Russian investor, that there's a country that is at the center of the world. And we mean it is at the center of the world. If you look at where the longitudes and the latitudes meet, that is where you find Ghana. That is the entry point into West Africa, into Africa, and a key country in the ECOWAS region, and the headquarters of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the new kid again on the block when it comes to business in Africa, where you can come and invest, put up a factory, and you can sell to the whole of Africa, tariff-free. That is the kind of country that we have that we want to offer, the kind of message that I want to bring today to the investors, potential investors, and those who want to know about Ghana, and to offer myself the opportunity for the necessary questions to be asked, so that we can answer, so that those who don't know Ghana might get to know something about Ghana. That Ghana has moved on. And there are all incentives that are available. All the structures that you need to be able to operate in an economy that will help you grow your investment and take away your profit. That is what I want to come and present to this forum.
Очень удивительно.
Very, very thrilled to hear that. Indeed, I have known little about Ghana, and our entrepreneurs, well, they don't know much about the African continent because we work here in Russia. But with the changes in the geopolitical situations, people start wondering. But for them, the countries of Africa are indeed a huge section on the map about which we know that there is some civilization, but what people do there, we do not know. That's like another terra incognita. That means that we do not know the world around us, and that is indeed so. I'm not speaking about the large businesses. I'm not speaking about the diplomatical relations. There, everything is good. There we have the communications. There we have our long-term strategic plans and so on. But for small businesses, whose interests I represent, I know that this is the reaction of small businesses. If you don't have a lot of large businesses, but you have a lot of SMEs, they do not know what SMEs in Russia do. We lack information, each other. The conditions in Ghana, what lines of business there are, what demands for the development of business. Where can we get this information to discuss it with our colleagues? Maybe we will indeed get together and organize a business mission to go to Ghana. Maybe it will be a good thing for us to actually go and see things with our own eyes. We have a huge information gap. We do not know one another. What we have to start with would be cooperation with relations and business links, and we should probably start with that. As my colleague said, it's like building, it's commercial diplomacy. We have to start with something small and then develop and get to know better. Well, allow me to intervene. I have some experience that way. We have had an exhibition, and within its business agenda, we were trying to give one special day to our colleagues. So let's say we had a day of Iran, the day of India, to enable the people not only to speak about potential investment and potential opportunities, but to talk specifically about industries and what's possible and what is not in each of them. Because from that we would be able to create a sort of a program and a sort of strategy that would be able to work out with our governments and those investments, specifically in the small business, what colleagues have referred to, that would be protected on a certain level. Then it starts working. Otherwise, we will not go any further than just talks. Thank you very much. We are indeed pressed for time right now, and we would love to learn more. Everything we have discussed so far will be published in our channel, but we will have to move on. We spoke a lot about small and medium businesses, about cooperation, about interregional and international interaction, and we spoke only a little about what the state does. But so it happens that the small business develops independently, and it works hand in hand with the state. Large businesses are working even closer. Today we have a representative of anti-corruption policy, Ms. Ravia Shursha, and we would ask her to would like you to give us a summary as to what the business has to do and how to develop interaction with the state. Let's have this sober note from the side of anti-corruption department, because you know that corruption exists everywhere. The Republic of Tatarstan is a very dynamically developing republic, and that is thanks to you, because your control, your supervision, and the president's administration and the cabinet, it all contributes to our excellent results. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, today, all the world has recognized that one of the global problems of today is the questions of corruption. Today, the Russian Federation takes all measures in anti-corruption, and being part of Russian Federation, the Republic of Tatarstan also is engaged in anti-corruption policy. We started this work back in 2005, even before the federal law on combat of corruption in the Republic of Tatarstan was adopted among the first subjects of the Russian Federation. And we would like to draw your attention to the fact that this influence of corruption on economy, well, economy is highly sensitive to corruption. We would like to thank the organizers of the section for making this brief presentation. Combating corruption is extremely important and up to date. And the experience of the Republic of Tatarstan indeed shows that you can see the results. You see Kazan as the capital of Tatarstan, and it looks the way it is. It is thanks to the politics implemented by the Rais of the Republic of Tatarstan, Rustam Nurgalevich Minnikhanov, who is the head of the Commission on Combating Corruption. Our commission meets openly and broadcasts its sessions to the entire Republic. In the beginning of my speech, I would like to switch on the video about the implementation of anti-corruption policy, but it's better. A picture is worth 1,000 words.
Государственные программы. За каждой из них практичные экономические цели, люди и их семьи. Приоритеты республики.
The priority of the Republic of Tatarstan is to ensure comfortable living for the population, its well-being, and so on. We take an active part in national projects. We keep the pace in attracting the investments. This activity is impossible without involvement of transparent and understandable business rules, as well as effective management. However, big money requires increased control. According to law, every year anti-corruption commissions find lots of crimes in this. Corruption is a complex phenomenon that negatively affects the public morale and the state management. Tatarstan was among the first republics of the Russian Federation to adopt the laws on fighting the corruption. A permanent body for the implementation of anti-corruption laws is supervised by the President of the Republic of Tatarstan. The development of each municipality has an assistant for questions on anti-corruption monitoring, and a special task force whose authorities are appointed by the President of Tatarstan. In that way, we are able to reduce risks and give practical help to executive authorities. The result is minimization of systemic conditions which foster corruption. Among the first, we put the order for the agriculture. We introduced some changes in subsidies made to legal entities. 5 years ago, every fifth resident faced corruption. Now it's 2 times less. So what tools can we offer? First is transparency. It is Tatarstan's know-how of Tatarstan to ensure electronic accountability of government officials in their income and profits. Then we reduce the legal nihilism, anti-corruption education, and we educate the sense of honesty. For more than 10 years, we are launching educational programs involving heads of executive bodies. We have online messages and live phone calls, and the Public Chamber of the Republic of Tatarstan also plays a special role. In this way, we are able to trace and track the interests of many bodies, which assists minimization of manifestation of corruption. We were also among the first to create a scientific center for studying of corruption. We also run a national conference on the dialectics of combating corruption. In the educational institutions, from schools finishing with university, we also run seminars, forums, roundtable meetings aimed at forming anti-corruption view of the world. After we ran the first youth anti-corruption forum, we've also been cascading these initiatives to other administrative units of the Russian Federation. Business Against Corruption was created in 2018 and has been involved mass media, independent experts, and so on. This is a state priority, and this is stated in the law of the Republic of Tatarstan. Today, we are among the leaders in many indicators. Tatarstan is able to become a leader in many technologies and innovations, and that finds its reflection in the mentality of its dwellers. So you see that the implementation of anti-corruption policy is done by every citizen of the Republic of Tatarstan. Its scientific community, self-government bodies, religious organizations, we are also actively involved, and of course, business community. What concerns the business community, we understand that the implementation of anti-corruption policy is important in every single organization. The example is set by our large businesses and enterprises. We have some companies which have implemented their anti-corruption compliance in their companies. Of course, small and medium enterprises are not able to do that on the same scale, but they can also make their own respective contribution. Implementation of anti-corruption standards and charging each employee with the responsibility of complying with them is possible for any entrepreneur. Besides, here in Tatarstan, we are inventing and implementing different options and institutions working in the relevant area. One of them is the Republican Anti-Corruption Expert Group. It goes to municipal districts and areas, and its prime task is identification of corruption risks in some areas of life or in different municipalities. And they can be found in the implementation of national projects and the implementation of national projects. The important thing is not to identify the risk. The important thing is to take measures to prevent those risks from reoccurrence. So after each session of the Republican Expert Group, we escalate those questions to the governmental level, and we do that with maximum transparency, with involvement of the public community and mass media. Then we elaborate the algorithms to prevent the possible encroachments on the legality. In that way, we minimize the very possibility of the corruption risks to unravel. Another task is to do the legal education for people. Every person is should be educated in such a way, based on norms of morale and spirituality, that the people will not be able to engage in any corruptive activities. Of course, this has a deferred effect, and we cannot say that we have already achieved some large-scale successes, but we are sure that in our future work we will be able to get some effect from this work. And as you saw in my short video, we are employing a comprehensive approach in this one. We are employing mass media and religious organizations. Even in their prayers, people say that corruption is forbidden, that the Almighty does not allow corruption, and that they are against the norms of justice. So, as I said, this is a multifaceted task. But the important thing is that the Republic of Tatarstan supports all businesses that are based on fair labor, fair work, and the compliance with the norms of the law. When entrepreneurs understand that a fair business is a long-term business, and so we can say that supporting the initiatives of the business community we have created the Council for Anti-Corruption Compliance, supported by the Rais of the Republic of Tatarstan. It engages hundreds of SMEs. It engages organs or executive authorities. It engages religious organizations. And together, we are able to discuss the questions of anti-corruption policy, which are up-to-date and important. Dear friends, I would like to thank all of you for your interest to questions of combating corruption, because as history shows us, only together we are able to fight the corruption. I would uphold your opinion that's the most important type of support given by you. The businesses say that they are able to, that they want to cooperate with the government and to be in the dialogue, but in some cases the businesses only want people not to stand between the solution of some questions. The corruption factor sometimes appears that it is the only stop factor. There are investments, there are technologies, there are people and stuff, there are all the facilities. But if we don't this factor into account when it arises, then everything goes corrupt, everything goes broken. The system, the processes, the everything. And when the people yes, business should be built on honesty and on compliance with the laws. Of course, a lot depends on the state. The government should stimulate things. It should provide an algorithm that would be standing. The business should get used to stability. In that way, the Republic of Tatarstan is just like that. When we have new rules, we accept roadmaps And those roadmaps are not always seen as a set of rules to be followed by some companies. So for them, these open documents are exactly the outline of the possibilities represented by our state authorities. Yes, these are the easily provided guidelines. And when people ask me about these questions, I tell them, use the roadmap, because it provides all the necessary information in simple form. I would like to make to draw a conclusion, because we are already out of timing. I would like to thank all of our speakers, even those who left our venue. We'll forgive them that. I would like to thank all the speakers and experts for their presentations, for their initiatives, for the examples and cases and your experience that you shared, how it works and how it doesn't work, and what we need to do for the small and medium enterprises. I confirm that we will still have to find this interregional and international format and give all the opportunities available in countries and regions. In that way, we will be able to achieve some positive outcome. When we comply with the norms of business, of commercial, and religious purity, let's say, in all of these relations, then we will have a future. Otherwise, we will stay in some unfriendly relations. They don't have a future. If we do a good and interesting thing on a longer period that will stay here to our future generations, they will keep up our good work. And I think this is really worth it. This is a life worth living. Thank you. We will wait you on our next sessions. Tomorrow we're going to discuss things in hall number 5. We're going to speak about the culture code in business relations between countries. And on the 17th, we will be discussing the algorithms of small businesses going to markets of Islamic world. And we will be speaking about the transfer of technologies. So we'll be waiting all of you, all of the speakers, all of the experts. You see, we tried hard to make a very diversified agenda, and we thank you. Thank you for working in such a brief time whilst giving such a lot of information.